Well, did everyone eat? Great. Did it taste good? Great. We probably need a refill of blood sugar because we're talking about documentation there. So, my name is Tom-Inge Larsen. I work as a technical architect at a small consulting company in Norway. Is James O'Neill in here? No? Nice, because my get speaker function outputs colored results, and I didn't want to offend him. So, let's move on with it. We're going to be talking about documentation and how to make documentation great again, as the session was called. I saw when the session was advertised on Twitter, I managed to make a small Freudian slip, I think, when I wrote the session bread text, because I had written sexy documentation. To each their own, I guess. But so I can't promise that. But cool documentation is probably a result of it anyway. Now, of all Microsoft's Power Star products, PowerPoint is probably my least skilled one. So we won't be spending much time in PowerPoint, although I recently learned that you can use your pen, so I needed to click something at least. So I managed to create all animations and everything. So in this session, we're going to be talking about Markdown, what Markdown is, possibly, how you can use it. This is a PowerShell conference, so what we will be documenting is code, although the method with using Markdown and hosting with static static HTML generator like MkDocs can be used for almost any IT documentation. So, but in this session, we'll focus on module documentation and code documentation. So these three will play a big part of it, and then in the end, we'll take a look at how we can automate it using Azure pipelines, and also hosting it with Azure Storage. So, first of all, though, Markdown. Is everyone or is anyone familiar with Markdown? Wow, a great bunch. But about 50-50, so we'll do a quick recap. So Markdown is, well, probably 20 years ago, the computer nerds realized that not everyone would be able to write HTML by hand. So these simpler markup languages started appearing, and you might have seen them on wikis and stuff like that. But around the same time, Markdown also appeared, and it's quite similar to any wiki editing. I think they probably use some sort of flavor of Markdown anyway. But what it is really a language that allows us to do readable text, create readable markups, and also easily convertible. These are examples. Here we have, you use hash signs for headings. So just multiply the hash signs and you will get headings. You can put in horizontal lines by using these things. And also, more and more, emphasis. You can do block quotes. You can do lists by either using a plus sign or a dash or a star. You can do ordered lists by using 1 dot, 2 dot. You don't even have to order them. You can just put 1 dot, 1 dot, 1 dot, and the engine will do it for you. And you can also start from an offset, for instance. And also do code. So pre-formatted text can be easily integrated. So within VS Code, we have this awesome open preview whenever you write Markdown, which will actually convert it for you. So you can you can see how it looks. So here we have the different headings, we have the different horizontal lines. So the point behind it is to be able to take text, write pure text, and host it or convert it easily to HTML. The good thing is that it's easily converted to almost anything. So there are engines out there like Pandocs that can basically convert Markdown to anything. So I had a customer who, and I won't judge, but for whatever reason, they kept all their system documentation in a folder on a file server in PDF formats. Was the only thing they accepted. So we could still write all the documentation in Markdown and just convert it to PDF for them. And also when we did updates, we could just update the PDF and update the documentation that way. So a quick walkthrough of Markdown there. So everything we'll do in this session will be based on Markdown. So Shift F, I can see. No. So let's move on to the meat of the session, which would be PlatyPS. So PlatyPS is a project hosted by Microsoft. But before we go into what it is, it's good to take a look through the types of help documentation or code documentation that you do in PowerShell. So the one probably most people have used is what's called comment-based help. So you put this kind of notation at the top of your code somewhere, and there's some notation on how you do synopsis, description, examples, inputs, outputs, and notes. So it's been covered why you should document code in an earlier session, but this is how you do it in practice. And this is all well and good when doing simple functions or small projects. You can put the documentation in the code quite easily. But whenever you need to scale, most often you would use external help documentation. This is written in what's called MAML XML, so Microsoft Assistance Markup Language, and XML is Extensible Markup Language. And this is definitely not, well, it's not even human readable, but it's especially not human writable. So in most cases, when you use external help, you use some sort of external engine to generate the XML for you. The advantages of external help is that it is external from your code. So if it's a big enough project, you might have a separate team of maybe even non-technical people actually doing the technical document writing. So then you can give those people the opportunity to do their work without having to go into the source code files. Another advantage of it is that it can be localized. So if you need to provide help in different languages, you can do that using external help. And we'll check in on that a bit later. And also, if you host help files online, external help also supports update help, the update help commandlet as well. So there are advantages. And the third type of help that we're looking at is something that's, well, it's not new, but most people nowadays probably go online instead of using the get help command. So more often than not, it might be advantageous to use some sort of website where you host your documentation for your code. So what PlatyPS is It's meant to solve that. So it's meant to solve that you can use external help with MAML XML, but also from the same source, also generate the HTML or web documentation as well. So what PlatyPS will do, it will take a look at your code, and it will generate a Markdown template for your code, where the only thing you need to do, and unfortunately, AI isn't that good yet, so you still will need to write on your own what your code is actually going to do. But it will create a template for you where you can fill in and automatically format it for you. From that source, it will convert everything to MAML XML for you. And it will also, since it is Markdown, easily convert to HTML as well. The most probably important part of it isn't actually generating your documentation in the first place, but it is the ability to manage the life cycle of it, so it can update your documentation as you go along. So if you've written in a new parameter in your function, or you add another function, or whatever you do, you can run an update command, and it will automatically recognize what is new and fill that into the new template, into the existing template, so that you can actually just update whatever you have updated or not. So, and what you heard in the beginning was me having this YouTube video up because I needed a link for it, but Sergey Vorobev had a quite lengthy talk on PlatyPS at the PowerShell Summit in 2017, which is on YouTube. So if you want to have a deeper dive in PlatyPS, it's 1 hour and 30 minutes. You can take a look at it there on YouTube. So, but enough talk. Let's see how this PlatyPS stuff works. So, 7 minutes before this session started, I tried running this demo. And everyone who has tried running a demo before a live talk knows how that goes. So for some reason, pwsh.exe was missing from my system. So I had to reinstall PowerShell and also all my, and somehow this seems to, there we go. So hopefully it will work. So to use PlatyPS, what you will need to do, and so let's just quickly take a look at, I've created a dummy module that we will be using in this session. So it's called Playground Tools. It has the usual stuff you would think from a module. So you, to actually generate PlatyPS files, you need to import it first. It needs to be imported into the session. I can't see my, there we go. So you import it the usual way. So we can see that it got imported as well. So here we have version 0.0 of this module, commands exported correctly, so that's nice. But, so out of the box, in this module, I haven't added any common space help yet, so get help will return nothing. So it will just return whatever PowerShell can see. So it can see the syntax, but that's about it. So what we will do now, so if you have an existing module that utilizes common space help, PlatyPS will also convert that into the Markdown for you. So if you have done any work documenting your code already, that will be taken care of by PlatyPS as well. This isn't the case with this module. So what you do is call new Markdown help, which is a commandlet in PlatyPS. So this, you can run this on simple functions as well, but if you have imported the module, you just use the module parameter and the module name, and you do an output folder. So in this case, we wanted to to be in a folder called code under docs. And we also want the module page. So when we run this, PlatyPS will generate all these Markdown files for you in the folder you specified. So now we have everyone here. Sorry. So if we take a look at one of these files, this is how they look when they are fresh out of PlatyPS. So there's some YAML stuff in the header. We won't be looking at that now. But it has this template, and the structure is more or less what you're familiar with from PowerShell help. So there would be a header and a synopsis, and within the code, it's this type of text structure signifies that this is where you have to fill in stuff yourself. This is what computers can't do for you yet. So writing the actual documentation is still something you need to do. So you fill it in here. It creates this syntax for you, some descriptions, examples, and here you can add as many examples as you need. So James O'Neill talked about your contract with the user and your spec for building your tests upon. So all of those examples can be filled in here. So, and you can fill in as many as you need. Within Markdown, you have these 3 ticks, which signifies a code block. And if you add some language name after it, Markdown will also syntax highlight for you when it's converted. So we add example code and as many examples as we need, some description, and it is also, and then it automatically fills out the parameters for you. It creates this set of, this is also like what you're used to from PowerShell help with all the parameters for it. The only thing that it can't recognize is the default value. So if you have a parameter with the default value in your params section, you will have to fill this out manually. But that's the only thing in this section you will have to do manually. It will see if it accepts a pipeline input, either by property name or by value. So, and then it puts in the common parameters. It will automatically fill that in if you're using commandlet binding, stuff like that. So, converted, this is usable already. So it looks kind of like, and if you think it looks kind of like the docs.microsoft.com setup of documentation, it's because this is what they use there. So this is the generated HTML. Now, we need to fill this with some data, and to be able to do that, I have cheated a bit. So we just need to revert this and change branch. So here we have the complete filled data, or the filled Markdown with actual descriptions. So what we can move on to do now is that we can actually generate the external help. So when you want to generate the external help, you use the new external help command. With the path argument is where the source Markdown files are located. So in this case, docs and code in here. And the output path, you put it somewhere with your code. So we will export this to SRC and ENUS for the ENUS localization. If you need more than ENUS, you can create more Markdown files and generate the other languages based on the other Markdown files. So if you run this, We get in the ENUS folder the MAML XML needed to generate help for your module. Automatically generated for us. So, to be able to use this, instead of the comments-based help with the syntax we looked at earlier, you just put in external help and then the name of the XML file. And it needs to be so it needs to be named the same in all of the localization folders. So if we do this, we can then reload the module by using the force command. And now we should see or did I run it? I didn't. Here we go. So now we get the help from getHelp based on our MAML XML file that was generated from HTML. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, already, this is now usable as HTML as well, because both GitHub and Azure repos, as this code is hosted in, automatically format Markdown files as HTML when you view them in the code browser. So you don't really need to do more than this to be able to host your code documentation online. But let's do more than this. So I can't see my F buttons. Here we go. So the next thing we will be looking at then is MkDocs. And MkDocs is a Python application, and it's a framework for generating HTML documentation based on documentation written in Markdown. So it's a static HTML generator that will take your documentation files. If they are put in a specific structure, it will generate beautiful, nice HTML pages based on those. And it's static HTML pages, so you can host them more or less anywhere. You can just have them on your local disk. There's a server built into MkDocs, so you can serve them locally, or you can upload them somewhere that can host static HTML files. There are, so Read the Docs, for instance, is a cloud application that will host MkDocs for you. Unfortunately, they are free, so they need advertisement on their pages if you do it. So there's better to do it another way, but I'll get to that later. So let's take a look at MkDocs as well. So we need to revert again and change branch. So MkDocs is pretty easy to use. What you need to do is to structure your documentation like this. So it's kind of like structuring HTML pages. You have an overlying folder, and the index.md file in that folder will be the index.html in that part of the path in the website. So here we would have the root would be index.md from the docs folder. Then we would have a demo topic path. So we would do a /demo topic, and we would get to this index page, and we could do a /code and get to this page. So all the folders that you put into your docs folder will be separate menu items in the generated site. And you can link between them as well. So within Markdown, you have this structure, which will create hyperlinks for you. So if we take a look at this in the preview, it will be presented like a normal link. And if you click it, so within, did I go to the right one? This one. So if you click it within Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio Code will navigate for you as well. So you can test everything before you generate anything. So the more you also need an mkdocs.yaml file, which is the configuration for your mkdocs site. So you can use some themes. There are several themes written out there, or you can create your own theme. You can specify what Markdown extensions you want. Your repo URL would be the URL that the click on the home icon would get you to, and a site name. So this is a quite easy configuration. So what we do is that we run mkdocs build. It's the only command we need. That will create a site directory with a complete HTML page. So it contains 404 index pages, a sitemap for search engines. It contains assets with style sheets and JavaScripts and whatever you need in it, based on your theme, your mkdocs theme. So these HTML files will be usable as any HTML file. Where are we? Here. So if you open it on your local machine, you can see how the page looks, or what the page will look like. So this is the result of the generated HTML page that mkdocs creates. So the layout and look of this page is decided by the mkdocs theme that you use. Of course, you can also serve it locally using mkdocs serve, which will start an inbuilt web server, which will host it for you. So you can take a look at how it would look on any web server. Okay, great. So this is very good. So what we'll do now is host it using kind of a, well, I don't think it's a hidden feature, but it's a largely unknown feature of Azure Storage. And in Azure Storage blobs, if you use Storage version 2, you can create a container within the blob called $web, and whatever HTML files you put into the $web container will be hosted on a link within Azure. So I guess I didn't, since I had to reinstall my PowerShell, I need to connect my Azure account first. So you'll have to bear with me. Has it popped up unfocused? Yeah, of course it has. So, sorry about that. There we go. So now we're connected. So what you need to be able to host these files is a storage account. So we're going to create a new storage account in a resource group that's called this. We will call it PSDayUK 19, put it in north of Europe, some SKUs, and it's important that you use storage v2. So let's run that. Let's hope the demo gods are with us. It shouldn't take too long. It certainly isn't bandwidth. Oh. Any questions while we wait? Yep. Oh no, is it done? Oh, nice. If you already have one, you can get it and load it into the variable as well. But we're not going to do that now. And now we have to enable static website store on the storage. So we do that in the storage account we created. We say that the index document is index.html and the error document is 404 HTML, which were generated by MkDocs. So we run this. Here we go. And now we can just verify that it has been created. So we get the blob endpoint here. And now we can upload the files. And I wrote this little, 3-4-liner to do it. There's nothing. There's no concept of directories in an Azure Storage blob. So, well, it is, but you have to have it in the file name. So we have to do some, magic on the files. So let's just do that and run it. And this will probably, no, it doesn't fail. Nice. So now it uploads all the files. Hopefully this doesn't take too long either. Any questions while we wait for this? No? Does everyone have a good day? There was a Formula 1 qualification right now, so let's get it done so I can see it. Oh, come on. There we go. So now we can find the URL, which is this. So if we control-click to follow it, the pages are hosted in Azure Storage. Nice. So, to take it even one more step further, we can automate this with Azure pipelines. So, let me change to the master branch. Did I have it? This is the same demo, yeah. So I've set up a pipeline in Azure Pipelines. It's a pretty simple one. It doesn't contain anything other than the actual stuff that we need to do to automatically update the documentation on each commit. But it's set up to trigger using CI and on the master branch. And what it does is basically just, it installs pip, our Python, and upgrades pip, which is the Python package manager. I don't know. And then we install MkDocs and the MkDocs material, which is the theme that we're using. And then we run MkDocs build. So that's the first part of it. So this is all that it's needed to actually do this on your own machine also. So you have to install Python. Fortunately, the Azure Pipelines machines have Python already, but it's an old version of pip, so we need to update pip first. That took some troubleshooting. And then there's an upload files to blob task in Azure Pipelines that you need to install and run it. And you need to use task version 2 because task version 1 or earlier than 2 didn't have the opportunity to upload to the $web container. So, but this is just a simple, you define what folder or what source from the code you would need, and this site folder would be generated in the previous step when we ran MkDocs build. You need to choose, of course, your subscription, the destination type, your storage account, and your container name. And this is it. So now all we need to do is make a change somewhere. Like this. Commit it. With typos and everything. Upload it. And now we should have triggered a build. There we go. So now it builds. It's already running. This pipeline, of course, has a different URL, so I might as well it's this one. This is where we get the URL. There we go. So when the pipeline has run, it's still running. Yeah, so it's uploading the new files now. And it's done. So now this should be updated with our change. Awesome, yeah. Great. So that's it really. If you make any changes to your code, you use update Markdown help. It will identify any changes and create new placeholders in the Markdown structure for you. So it's a part of the life cycle as well. Another kind of bonus with using PlatyPS is for testing. When you test your commit, if you do an update Markdown help, it will create a Git diff. So whenever you receive a code commit change to your repository, you can have a pipeline task that runs update Markdown help, and then check if Git diff returns anything or not. And if Git diff returns something, then update Markdown help will have identified a change, and you can deny the commit and tell them to update the documentation for you. So that's what I had. Thank you very much for listening. Is there any questions? Yep.
Is there any reason you chose MkDocs over other static generators?
Is there any reason that MkDocs was chosen over any other static generators? And no, nothing other than MkDocs has been built with IT system documentation in mind. So it's a kind of specialized in that way. But there's nothing stopping you from using Jekyll or any other static HTML generator if you wanted to. You would just have to Yeah, change the pipeline step and also maybe do changes to your structure because another HTML generator would probably have some other structure that it likes. So, but using Jekyll, for instance, would enable you to do an automatic GitHub pages, for instance, since they use Jekyll as their generator. Okay. Then I say thank you and enjoy the rest of the day.